are live.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Tuesday night edition of the Horror Syndicate Discourse. And before I get into introductions and get into the meat of the show, I want to let you all know that our good friend Zane Hirschberger and Justin Siemens' film Cryptids is on Indiegogo. So if you get a chance, go check that out. I appreciate it. I know they would too. Also, we're here to talk about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So without further ado, we've got Iron Maiden Nate here in the house, an empty chair, the fucking shit fuck apparently, and Keith. Seth, is that a Star Wars shirt?
Yeah.
You're speaking to my heart, buddy. Right there, speaking to my heart. There he is. It's not an empty chair. It's Jared.
Hi, I'm here.
You're sitting down. So
Should I stand up?
please do, because that'd be crotch level, wouldn't it? No. There we go. All right. So we're here today to talk about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. But first, we'd like to mention a couple celebrities have passed, including Kelly Preston recently. Nate, what was she in again?
Christine.
Christine.
Russell Dawn.
And then John Saxon from A Nightmare on Elm Street, Black Christmas, and Tenebra. Bruh. Most of us remember him from Black Christmas, Lieutenant Fuller, and of course, Lieutenant Thompson. He was a good lieutenant, not a bad lieutenant. He was a good lieutenant from A Nightmare on Elm Street. Anyway, anybody want to say a couple words about either one while we have a couple minutes?
I always like John Saxon's character. I've always mentioned before, like New Nightmare was my first Elm Street, so like that was my first introduction to him as an actor and his character. So it was a little different. And then when I finally got to see Elm Street, I got to see him actually be his actual character instead of his actor character from New Nightmare, if that makes sense. But I always liked him, like the way he acts and everything seems very like sincere and everything like that.
He was I thought he was great in Elm Street, and then again in the third movie when he played a broken down version of himself, which I thought was really great.
See him fight a skeleton.
Yeah, very Harryhausen style. It was sad and shocking to find that out, but you know, this has been a rough year anyway. So, anybody else have anything they want to say before we move on?
First time I saw him was in Enter the Dragon, the Bruce Lee movie, and then I got to watch all of his other portrayals in the horror films, and I think his best performance of the horror movies was probably A New Nightmare, in my opinion.
Yeah, a couple scenes that come to mind in New Nightmare whenever he casually goes from calling Heather Langenkamp Heather to Nancy, which was really great. And then she's all of a sudden wearing the Nancy costume. I love that. He was a good actor. It's a rough loss. So tonight we're going to talk about one of my favorite movies of all time. Just period, probably top 10 or so, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It's one of those movies my mom tested me with when I was about 6 years old. Really looking back makes me wonder what in the hell was wrong with my mom. Showing a 6-year-old the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
That's a great test.
Well, that was one of the ones that I actually passed. I think I talked about Reanimator as one that didn't. Silly movies are the ones that got me. Reanimator and what's that one, Jared?
Wasn't it TerrorVision?
TerrorVision.
Those got me, but Texas Chainsaw Massacre, that was cool. That's one I just watched over the years. I loved it. I love the dinner scene. Is one of my favorite scenes, most iconic things ever in horror, in my opinion. We'll get to you guys in a second. I just got to gush over this movie a little bit, if you don't mind.
Do it.
Well, being a huge fan of it through the 90s mostly because it wasn't on cable. You had to go out and find it, and my mom rented it, and it was gone off the VHS, the rental shelves in my area for a long time, and then finally I found somebody who had a copy of it. One of those rip copies on tape that I guess they dubbed, like Felicia trying to dub the Max and Friday, but it wasn't a great copy, which actually adds to it in my opinion, because it wasn't on cable, it wasn't shit. It was like a video nasty, one of the most notorious video nasties in Britain until like 2000. Did you get some Gatorade there, Jared?
Yeah, icy charge.
God damn it, Jake.
Sorry, I have it on the main screen where it showed Jared's face, like looking at the whole bottle.
Well, I've never had this flavor before, and it's fucking delicious.
Great.
Just that I share.
Gatorade gets more money now. Anyway.
Hashtag sponsor us. Come on.
Jesus. If they gave us money, that'd be fantastic. Maybe more people would watch us. Who knows? Anyway, I just love that movie. There's a few scenes that really stick out to me that really stick with me. And when I think of Texas Chainsaw, our Nubbins is one, the hitchhiker. The beginning, I think we picked up Dracula. He's so great. And then I really like the bone room scene, the scene where the one boyfriend, I can never remember their names because they don't matter, gets hit over the head. The reveal of Leatherface, he gets hit right over the head with the mallet. And when the girl runs out and he grabs her and all that stuff. And all that was missing from the remake. And that's why I hated the remake so much. Anyway, so what do you guys think? First viewings of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Let's talk with Seth a little bit. He looks like he just got finished working out.
That's like me working out.
Yeah, right.
Kick
So
it, dick. Come on.
I first saw it when I was in high school. My best friend at the time, it's his all-time favorite movie, and I remember that he said I had to see it. So, and he lived right next to a video store, and we just walked over and rented it, and we watched it. And at first, I didn't really love it, just because I wasn't, I guess, expecting that documentary style. Like, I was like, oh, where's the character development and all that other stuff? But like you said, that shit doesn't really matter with that movie because it's so raw. It's like literally following these people through this tragedy. So I came to appreciate more over the years. I like the series. I have all but the Next Generation. So it's not like it's not one of my top favorite horror franchises, but it's definitely one that I visit at least once a year. The end.
The end. Thank you, Snake.
Hopefully around barbecuing season.
Or chili making season.
Or chili making
It's all
season.
about the meat. We'll get to that. We'll get to that on Thursday, the second movie. How about Nate? What about you? Let's hear. You may have seen it before any of us.
I did, I think. I got into horror heavily in '88, and that was one of those movies like right away. There's movies you got to see, and I think I talked about it last week. I think Summer School may have been like my first glimpse of Texas Chainsaw Massacre when that came out in '87, I think. So I knew. I mean, Texas Chainsaw Massacre was one of those notorious titles. You knew of it. You knew of its existence.
Mm-hmm.
And that it was also one of those. It's just in the title alone, it's like already putting images in your head, and it's already like got you anxious about it as a kid, hearing that. And then the movie just delivers on it, because I saw it then, and I was just watching it earlier today, and I remember the scene that I think it scared me the most was after when he's chasing Sally, and the first time. And when she makes it into the barbecue gas station, she comes in the door and falls on the floor. The fear that I felt of he's still fucking out there, like he's out there, like, and I didn't know that the cook wasn't part of it yet,
Yeah.
so that he was part of it. So I was like, just like he's outside. Lock the fucking door. So when he opens the door and leaves it open and leaves her,
that's the worst fucking part.
Yeah, like that was like I just remember. I just flashed back to 1988 going, oh my God, shut that fucking door. But that's what I remember. The film just felt so real, and what's tricky about it is because of the documentary. I mean, really, the documentary feel is because of the 16 millimeter blown up to 35, and it's also the voyeuristic style of it, and the wides, and again how the characters, like you said, they don't care about the characters. Characters don't, the victims don't matter, and Toby didn't put any, effort into them. Like he just kind of like he didn't give them any direction. He didn't give them it. Like a lot of it was ad libbed. So it just feels very authentic. I think someone said that Forey Ackerman saw it. Said it was Joe Bob Briggs said that Forey Ackerman saw it and said those people feel real. Like I like those are real people. Mm-hmm. Like Wes Craven said, it looked like someone stole a camera and started killing people. It was just like a totally attacking of a film. And Wes said it scared the shit out of him. And that's the consensus I get from when you hear other people talk about it. When I interviewed Jack Ketchum, he said that was probably the best horror film he'd ever seen. He'd seen it at 42nd. He saw it in New York City on 42nd, Street in the Grindhouse, is like you're supposed to. He goes, and the way that audience responded to it, I've never seen that before, since or before that. And that to me was like Texas Chainsaw. When I worked in a video store, like a mom and pop video store, and this couple came in on the first day, and they were asking for horror movies. Of course, I was like, all right, we need to know. Because, they said, well, we want something really scary. And I said, well, have you seen The Exorcist? And they said, yeah, we watched it last night. That's why we're here. We want to watch something else. So my second choice was, have you seen the Texas Chainsaw Massacre? So that was my second choice on it. Anytime, if you want scary, and they ended up leaving with that one. But the thing about the documentary style is it tricks you because it actually is very well made, and it is not really made like a documentary because it is like a heavily edited film, and the framing and the cinematography is actually the transitions, everything is very filmic, but it doesn't feel it because of the overall atmosphere and tone of it, and the 16 millimeter and everything. It tricks you into believing that you're seeing something so real. And my feeling overall with Texas Chainsaw is that it feels like a happy accident. Like it doesn't feel like they really had full control over it. When you read about how the people talked about Toby, is like he was often confused and he changed his mind. He didn't know what he wanted to do, and he frustrated people. And he didn't have a shot list. Daniel Pearl said, he made a shot list, but it was bullshit just to get the producers off their back because he was so disorganized. And it was like Danny would show up and set up for the first shot, and then Toby would come and change it. And then he'd do this next day, and he did the same thing. He goes, what the fuck, dude? And he's like, oh, that shot list is bullshit. I was just to calm them down. So it just feels like the movie, he wanted to make a PG comedy. And I just feel like it was a perfect storm of a movie that came to be in editing and really went places they didn't really know it was going to go, and I don't think they realized how people were going to respond to it. It just feels like a movie that couldn't be replicated because they themselves didn't fully have an understanding of what they were putting together.
There's
when
no
they made
recipe.
It. Yeah.
Well, there is in his chili. In the cook's chili.
But Seth was trying to.
Oh, I mean, all I was gonna say is, going to that thing about the documentary feel is like, it's like not, I guess not so much documentary, but it's like it feels like you're along with the ride with the characters.
Yeah.
So
it feels like you're in the van.
Well, yeah. I mean, again, it does have. You weren't off on saying documentary because that's basically what it does feel like. It feels like a documentary. It
starts off that way.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like you're seeing a film. Like I said, it tricks you because there are some amazing filmmaking shots. Like there's a lot of great dolly shots and jib shots. It's like that opening shot of the corpses on the monument in the graveyard is amazing. I found a photo from behind the scenes and posted on my page.
I saw it.
The jib may look like a medieval fucking catapult.
It looks like a fucking javelin.
Yeah, like Vincent DeSanti is like, well, I don't know, is that a jib or is they going to launch a flaming boulder at us? Because it looks so archaic, you know. But and then of course that classic shot that's been called the greatest dolly shot in film history, the swing set shot, which, you know, that shot has like confused master filmmakers, because basically it was made up. Danny came up with it, pitched it to Toby. They didn't want him to do it. The producer's like, no, we don't have time. And he said, no, we have to get this shot. And it's almost an impossible shot. They had to lay the track under the swing and lay flat on a flat platform and then push them. And they had to hold the camera out in front of it low, and then Grips picked the swing set up as they were passing behind her. And he put a wide lens on there. So what he knew would happen with that wide lens was as they're following her, the house would just swell and fill the frame and swallow her up. And it's just this fucking amazing shot. And it's so beautiful. And it also sets up the hook scene. I know Ray's talked about the hook scene a lot on the show.
Yeah.
It shows you that bare back and how much flesh is there on her, and it's preparing you subliminally for that moment that you remember. Oh yeah, she's barebacked. How are they going to do? Like when you see it, you believe it because there's you're like, how did they trick us there? Because she has nothing there.
And they did trick everyone.
Anything.
That's the best part, is they tricked everyone. Swears they've seen the hook go in the back, and it doesn't ever. It cuts away to the front of her, and her dangling there also sells that scene quite a bit as well.
That shot where it shows you the pail underneath her, but subliminally that's to catch the blood from her. And it's like, so yeah, like it's all fill in the blank. But also like I think they hung her with using nylon like pantyhose and wire, and when she fell, she kind of jolts, and it kind of sells it that way, that she's actually landing on the hook and stopping. There's something stopping her there, and
you have that bunginess.
Yeah. It's that scene, that whole scene from the time that Kirk walks into that house and trips and Leatherface appears and gets hit in the face and then starts, spasming out. The twitching, and he hits him again. He slams that door shut, and then
that's amazing scene.
That's one of the. I would say that's the greatest moment in horror film. Period. Like I can't think of a better scene, because it's like, and I read that Doug Bradley commented on that scene. He said, Leatherface, your introduction. He was talking to Gunner. He said, your introduction is not like, say, Dracula, because when Dracula appears in the stairs, it lingers on him. It stays. He goes, you're in and you're out, and boom, we don't even know who the fuck you are, and we're left with all these questions, and we're terrified because we got a glimpse and it's gone.
It's a what the fuck moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you hear the pig squealing. The camera pans up. Bam! Pull him on the head. The guy shakes, shuts the door. Bam! That's a great intro to not even the killer, not the big killer of the movie. Well, I guess he is.
And we have a lot to owe to the guy that played Kirk, because that was his idea to let it go farther. Because I think it was just supposed to hit. He said,
even though he disowned the movie afterwards.
Yeah, they all did.
They all did, yeah.
But he said that James Cagney said never any great actor doesn't die fast. So he pitched it to Toby. He's like, what if I, like, when he hits me, I spin my head around and then my body follows. And then Toby's like, oh yeah, and then you could like jerk and spasm on the ground. And he has to hit you again and all this stuff. So it was all kind of made up there, and that to me is part of it. And then Gunnar said he was so nervous about, because that was his first shot. I think it was the first day of shooting as Leatherface. He was so nervous about hitting him that he actually hit him square in the face with the sledgehammer. Of course, he was rubber, but it hurt. It left a bruise. But he hit him. But then the second time when he grabs him, he goes, I was so worried about pulling him in the door that I actually lifted him and threw him into the wall and knocked him silly.
He's worried about hurting this person, but out of worry, it hurts the person.
He said, I saw like the producer running over to check on the guy because he thought he killed him.
Let's say we do have some comments. Let's see. Jared Crank said, let's talk about Bubba with what to me looks like a Ric Flair whoa.
That's the Death Curse woo.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, well, yeah, that's what he's from, the Death Curse Society. They go, woo, it's him, and Zigzag. They do the woo all the time. Watch their show.
Okay. I watch the Friday 13th most of the time. Rachel says, best film ever. First time I seen it was the end as she's running away, heart stopping. Chris Hall said TCM is all music and atmosphere.
Atmosphere for sure. I don't know about
Yes.
music.
Nick Wood said, what is your favorite kill of all the movies?
It's Kirk. I can't. Again, that's the greatest scene in movies. I can't think of
Yeah,
it.
well, Franklin's was kind of cool too. I mean, in
Yeah.
the first movie, you don't see much. All you see is Leatherface pop up out of nowhere, the chainsaw sound, and
I'd say the Hitcher getting ran over, but
that's a good one.
and
Old
then
Nubbins.
Which
Anthony,
character
Leatherface
was
in part
Kirk?
2 was good too. He dies. Let's just
Which character was Kirk again?
The
the
first,
first
guy
one to get
dies, the
whacked.
boyfriend that gets hit,
Yeah.
slam the door,
Yeah.
the aluminum door is shut.
Yeah.
and then Anthony Lopez says, I like your Annabelle neck on the wall, which I'm guessing is for me. I don't know how the fuck you saw that, but Jesus.
It's up
Well,
there. You can see
I
it.
can see
Clear
it,
as
but
day.
like there's
It's
so much
no,
shit back there.
right to your left there.
I
Look
see
at
it.
look up. Right to your left. Up. Look at your wall to your left.
Oh.
Yeah.
I'm
Oh,
looking at
on your
the actual
wall. There
figure,
you go.
God damn it.
Right there.
I'm blind.
You may have a problem.
I do. Let's say, Ray,
We haven't heard.
you said that you don't know why your mom let you watch this at such a young age. And no, this was not my grandfather this time, but I've heard a bajillion times apparently this was my movie whenever I was like 1 or 2. And when it would go off, I would cry, so they would rewind it so I could watch it again. Apparently, I love this movie. And I don't think I ever watched it until I bought the Blu-ray in 2014 when I was in high school.
Do you have any residual memories from that?
I don't.
God,
I don't remember any of it.
2014.
That's why, like, anybody ever asks me what my first horror movie is, I say Evil Dead 2, because it's my first, like, memory.
Yeah, apparently my mom showed me before Nightmare. Children of the Corn, I guess, was on all the time, but I have no memory of ever seeing that. She's like, "Oh, you love that movie." I did? I don't remember. I don't love it now, but it's extremely dated. Anyway, that's one thing the Texas Chainsaw Massacre is not, is dated. Jared, we didn't hear from you. Stop playing with the dog.
Yeah, he's messing around. I was actually asking about Kirk because, I wasn't sure, like you said, the characters' names other than Franklin, obviously,
Yeah, Sally
and Sally, you don't really remember their names too much. But the first time I saw it, I think I was like 13 or 14. And, the bus scene where they pick up Nevins and is obviously kind of fucked up. But like once everything starts getting into the nitty gritty, Kirk's death is literally the most chilling kill in that movie because he just bangs him on the head, and there's this sound effect when he slams that door shut that just I never it gives me chills every time I see it, regardless. Like kind of like how you guys have described, like the dinner scene is amazing. I know some people think that the last 20 minutes of some screaming is a little off-putting, but I also think
Justin
that it
Bieber
is.
says that. Let's not.
I wasn't gonna name names.
Realistic.
I wasn't gonna name names, but yes,
I'll name
like,
names. Justin Bieber. That's all he says every time he posts something about Texas Chainsaw Massacre. He never watches the show.
terrifying. Like, what
It
would you do
is.
in that situation? You're
What would you do if
fucking
you fell into a
terrified.
room of bones?
What's the problem? I don't listen to these people. There's a problem with too much screaming. Is that what it is?
Yeah, it's
she-
all screaming, is what he says.
It is. And she's going fucking nuts and she's terrified. What
But
the
Jared,
hell?
really
Really
good
yeah,
at it.
exactly. Jared's got a point. What would you do in that situation?
She is. Oh, but that goes back to we brought that up. Mark Patton was on the show and he talked about how he gets attacked for screaming like a girl. When Jerry gets killed, when Leatherface comes in the door, he screams like a woman. Because that's because Mark Patton said that's how you really scream. No one goes, oh, like you scream like a woman, because that's how a real scream is. And the thing is, Gunnar scared him so badly because I guess that was the first time he saw him, or you got this huge motherfucker coming at you like that. He said the first take, that guy dove under the table because he was like that terrified of, like it scared him so bad. But when that happens, that's a very real reaction. It's very frightening when Jerry turns around and Leatherface comes through that door and just knocks the shit out of him. But yeah, like you said, like that whole ending. I had Keith send me the audio commentary with Daniel Pearl and the editor and the sound guy, and I didn't have visual, I just had audio, but I'd seen the movie enough to know it. So I was at work listening to it, so all I could hear was Texas Chainsaw in the background that last 30 minutes, and it's screaming and crying and begging, and it's fucking disturbing just to listen to it. Like just to and I thought made me think of the remake teaser trailer where they just had that chainsaw and you hear the sound of the girl screaming and running, and it was such an effective trailer because of that. Because it is like, if you just listen just put on Chainsaw and just listen to it and don't watch it, and just it's so. I remember on my first film, they were shooting a scene similar like that. I wasn't there, but the people who were working on it, they were shooting a scene similar to that in a closed space. So everybody was like, cast was out or crew was outside listening to it. And they said after a while, they just had to walk away because it was so hard to listen, even though they knew it was just a performance. Just the sound of this girl screaming and all this shit going on. And the actor's like, oh, I haven't smoked in 5 years, but I had to have a cigarette after because my nerves were so fucked up doing it.
No, I get what you're saying with the audio though, because to send that to you, I literally had the entire movie play on my computer, recording just the audio, or with the black screen. So like I was sitting over here and I could just hear the audio coming through my headphones, and all I hear is screaming, chainsaw, more screaming, another chainsaw.
But that relentlessness is what's so
Yeah, it just keeps
effective.
going. It
Like
doesn't give out.
they don't let you breathe. By the time she breaks through that window, you're like, oh, all right. And then she's now back, and now they're on her tail again, and it's like, that's the thing. That movie doesn't stop. And the thing is, luckily, it's only like 80 minutes long.
I feel like
Because I thought you couldn't take any more of that.
so also after watching it, I feel like she's like one of the final girls that's gone through the most out of any of the other final girls, in my opinion. Like she literally jumps through 2 fucking windows in one night, gets cut I don't know how many times with a straight razor, gets hit in the back of the head like what 3 times with a hammer. Like she literally goes through a beating.
That scene where she crashes into the gas station after he's chased her.
She swatted with a broom a bunch too.
Yeah, she gets beaten with a broom.
They said like her performance in that scene was so compelling that Toby didn't call cut, so they like have a whole reel of her, like 11 minutes worth of her doing that scene.
She's very good.
And she never broke character. And I was watching it really close today where after he leaves her and she's sitting there, there's a shot of her and she's just, the way she's twitching and her reaction, she looks completely traumatized. Like her performance in it is so real. And then when he comes back in and he's turned and she knows it and she says, "What do you want from me?" Like her delivery in that line is heartbreaking and terrifying at the same time. Like the look on her face, the way she says it, because she thought she was safe and now she realized, what are you going to do to me? Wow. Like it's like this realization of fuck. Like, so it's just that the movie just attacks and it doesn't let up. And it's about it's a lot about, at the core, it's a fairy tale. And Harold Schechter, the movie's based on Ed Gein loosely. Everybody knows that by now.
Yeah.
And I'm sure everybody listening knows who Ed Gein is, knows crimes.
Serial killer, Wisconsin, the 50s.
Yeah.
There you
go. But Harold Schechter wrote a great, he's a true crime novelist or author, and he wrote a book on Gein, and he said that, the movie is a fairy tale that's dealing, and it's based on the story of Ed Gein, period, is based on a very old folk story about going into taboo rooms and taboo homes or taboo places. And usually in those stories, and this goes way back before our time, this is way back in old times, where there were old stories where people would go into places they weren't supposed to, and there was always dismembered bodies in there. There was always that type. That was part of the story. That was part of and it's like it's something ingrained in us, and that's where Texas Chainsaw comes. And he goes, and Ed Gein like made it a reality, like that was it. But it really comes down to Hansel and Gretel, because these characters are going into somebody else's home. They're going in a place they're not supposed to go. You know, they're the home invaders,
and they're being led there too.
Yeah,
basically.
At the same time, Leatherface, and what's so brilliant about that character, and especially Gunner's performance, is that he's the one who's in fear. He's the one who's like that scene after he kills Jerry and he runs to the window, which is one of the greatest scenes in the movie, where he's like looking out the window like, where are they coming from? Why? And he's freaking out because like, how many are there more? And he like he's only killing because he's out of fear. These people are in my house. And in that scene where he doesn't know what to do because he's mentally challenged. He's not
simple-minded. Yes,
very simple-minded. He's like he's got like the mind of a 10-year-old child who is alone and doesn't know how to deal with these things. And
younger.
And the thing is, he only kills because of that's what his family does.
Yeah.
And that's what he's expected to do for them. And that he depends on them, therefore he does what they want him to do. And he doesn't really understand. He can't think for himself, take care of himself, and he just does what they want him to do and that they order.
He was conditioned to that lifestyle.
Yeah. He's basically he's the family dog is what it really is. They abuse him, they beat him,
Look what your brother did to the door.
Yeah, exactly. You see that as soon as Drayton shows up. Look what your brother did. I mean, he first of all, you know, he sees Nubbins in the driveway and starts yelling at him right away. And Leatherface is there. He also plays like he's the stay-at-home mother figure in a way too, because he changes his mask, you know, to his it's the second one called. It's like an
old lady.
Yeah. And you know, he changes his mask for every occasion. The dinner scene, he puts on the suit and the pretty lady mask, and
he's going out in town.
Leatherface is a really complex character, you know. Where
he is.
The cook and Nubbins, they have their place too, but you know, and they all treat Bubba like shit.
Yeah, he's like that's part of their ritual, like that part where the cook's yelling at him about the door, and then his part where he's trying to find something to yell at him, like he's like
because he's like,
look
did you
at
get
the door.
It's like, did you kill them all? He's like, yep.
Yeah, and like I said, the cook is a very complex character too, because he doesn't like violence. He doesn't like killing. He said, I don't take no pleasure in it, and I'm not into it. And that part where Grandpa's trying to hit him with the sledgehammer, I love how he's in and out of the door, out of the room, like he doesn't want to be in there. He's torn between being there, but also cheering on Grandpa, but like keeps going back and forth.
Yeah,
like he doesn't want to.
Let's say it's like when he's in the truck, he keeps telling her like, "Oh, that's okay," but then he immediately just keeps fucking poking her with the damn broom,
and then getting like excited about it, but maybe feeling bad about it. Like he's in this moral conflict. He's a conflicted character because he's not, and really, you know, the underlining thing of the movie, of course, had a lot to do with the Vietnam War and how things were, the world was crazy and the youth were dying and basically eating the young and things like that. But it also had to do with the recession, the economic recession of that time, because the whole movie, I mean, that family lost their jobs. You know, they don't have any money, and the whole town is like that. The whole town is just, you got drunks hanging out at the graveyard. You got like,
talk about a great shot. That shot when he's laying over is a great shot.
Like that's a ghost town. All the economy is leaving.
Yeah.
You know?
So they maybe turned to cannibalism as a way to make.
Yeah, because most of them probably worked at that meatpacking place, the slaughterhouse, and you know, obviously Grandpa did. He was a one-hitter, and I
sit down.
I
wonder. Gas at the gas station, and
yeah, we ain't got no gas.
Ain't got no gas.
Dude,
You
that
know, it's
Yeah, I
guy,
like,
got no gas.
that guy with the freaking bucket, like I never noticed him
Yeah,
that
what
much,
happened to
and I
him?
and I
We ain't
watched
got
it,
shit.
but like every time he walks over to the car, the bucket guy follows him, and he's talking,
Yeah.
and he stops, walks away, and the bucket
I
guy, he
love
goes
that.
back and forth like 4 times.
I'm curious, seriously curious what happened to him in the movie. Like he's in at the gas station, the filling station, and then he just disappears when shows up. Sally shows up.
Maybe it's just his job, and he left for the
And maybe he's in Drayton's special chili in the second one.
day.
Maybe that's what his first ever award-winning chili.
So the story about shooting that scene where the first take, the guy playing Jerry turned on the windshield wipers after the guy was doing it, and it sprayed it all over Jim's seat out.
Mm-hmm.
It hit him, and they all started laughing, and they couldn't get through the scene because every time the guy would come up, watch the windows, they'd start laughing uncontrollably, pissing Jim off. Because Jim was like the only real, true, like
He was the only
professional
SAG
actor.
actor in the
Yeah.
movie. They needed one, and they got him, and he was great.
Yeah.
The other
Oh,
ones
yeah.
didn't matter. And I believe Sally. I just lost her name. She was
Marilyn.
Marilyn Byrne.
yeah, she was hired because of one of the producers was in love with her and her boobs.
I would say I just think it's crazy how good the eye shot is in the dinner scene for such an older camera, and like when it was filmed, like how crisp and clear those eyeball shots are. Like they're insane. They
That
look better than
macro-
like the rest of the movie almost.
That macro lens,
It's
really,
insane.
yeah.
I don't want the movie to look great ever.
Oh
I
my
kind of felt like that when people talk about putting it on Blu-ray and 4K. I'm like, that I don't want to see that movie that clean. That
No.
movie needs to be dirty and gritty.
Well,
and
it doesn't help any. I have the 4K restoration. It's still very grainy.
Is it? Yeah, I mean,
Yes.
it's
It doesn't
16
change it.
millimeter.
It doesn't change it any.
You're not getting rid of that
Dude,
16 millimeter grain.
You're not getting rid of that. And but I tell you what, the best version I've ever seen was an old dubbed VHS, man. If you want to talk about adding to the atmosphere, watch it. The quality was bad, the tracking was
Distortion
bad.
on top of grain.
It looks so bad, but it was fantastic because and I hadn't seen it in years when I saw that, and it's just added so much to the movie to me. And then when I got it on DVD in like 03, I guess they put it out on DVD with a movie ticket to go see the remake. So I didn't even pay to go see that piece of shit. Yeah, I got it on DVD, and it's grainy and whatever, but it's like, God, this looks too good for me. I don't like this. It's like Evil Dead is another one I don't think needs to be cleaned up. It needs to be, low quality and anyway.
I'll keep
It
my
can be
4K.
said about a lot of movies that are older. Like
Yeah.
there's no need to get the best view you can from it because they didn't have that technology at the time. It's like trying to make, like a high def 4K version of like a Universal monster movie from 1934. Like it's not going to make the movie look any better.
I'm a resolution whore. I can't say anything.
You're also, growing up in that generation, so it is what it is. I like it to look dirty and rough. I do have the newer Blu-rays and everything, and it's great. But mostly got them for special features than anything else. I still watch my original DVD when I watch it. If I actually, this is the first one I got.
I got that one.
I got that.
But,
I had that one.
A fan of the Horror Syndicate sent me this one, which actually I put it in backwards. Has the
meat
packed
packaging.
meat on the
Yeah.
back.
Yep.
Yeah, it's pretty great.
I love that case because it's almost like a Sega Saturn case. It's that gym style casing.
Yeah, and I don't know. I love it. I have way too many editions of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
So we got a couple comments. Rachel Dutton said, "Fantastic ending. It was so good. The ending as he's going crazy with the chainsaw, he can't even
the
control
closing
it.
shot.
Yeah, it's so good.
It's very iconic too.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Oh, very. Like Daniel Pearl said that he almost got his head cut off on that shot because he had a wide angle lens on it, which when you look through the wide angle lens, you look like you're further away than you actually are.
Mm-hmm.
So he was dancing with them, moving around, but he was like, they said, dude, you were so fucking close to getting hit.
So I guess some of you might know is the shot where Leatherface.
The car is closer than it appears.
the scene where Leatherface cuts himself in the leg. Did they literally just like pack his leg with something and just like drop a live chainsaw on it?
It was a metal plate, a blood packet, and a piece of brisket, and it actually like really hurt Gunner because the metal heated up from the
yeah, I would imagine.
And he started screaming.
that was an effective shot too. It looked real as like when I saw, I was like, "Is that looks like he got flesh for real?" They did it, man.
Chris,
that's amazing. That shot, that whole final. I know we'll get to Chris in a second. He doesn't.
His name is Annie Wilkes.
God damn it,
Annie Wilkes. Yeah. But that whole final, like as soon as Nubbins is hit by the truck. And then Leatherface, the truck driver, then the other truck pulls up and just steers right off the road. She just jumps right in the back of the truck. And
takes forever to get in there.
I just love when he finally sees Leatherface. He immediately turns around. Nope.
But he turns around and hits him with that wrench, that big ass wrench. Man, it's a great that has got to be one of the best finales of any film ever. Last final scene ever. Just when she gets out the window, Nubbins gets hit, and of course
him flashing at her with that.
I wonder what this is something this is where I'm getting. I wonder what Drayton the cook is doing while all this is going down. You know,
he's having some of that.
Was Leatherface afterwards
some of that,
drag Nubbins back with his.
He's eating that head cheese on the table.
Yeah, he's just eating,
changing Grandpa's diaper.
He says he's got to go to work early.
He's got to go open the shop because a man's got to make some money in this economy.
See, Kayla was coming down when I was watching it.
That's why he's got to turn the lights off.
Yeah, he's got to turn the light. I love that.
Yeah.
Almost forgot to close the door and turn the lights off.
Kayla came down while I was finishing it, and she came in like right when Nubbins is chasing her with the straight razor. So she watched like the whole ending scene, and the truck driver pulls up, and they both hop in the cab of the truck, and they hop out, and she's like, "Why didn't he just drive?" I'm like, "Don't ask me. I don't know. You're ruining the movie."
You guys got a chainsaw at the door. Oh.
Well, I mean, that kind of goes back to what Jared was saying earlier with, what would you do in that situation?
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of people. There's a lot of people who, they sit, behind their screens and say that, oh, I would do this if I was in that situation, or I would do that.
When you're in a situation, your thought process is completely different.
Yeah, you don't know until you're in that moment, and
it kind of goes out the window a little bit.
Yeah, and this is kind of something that we talked about at the beginning of this episode, is the sort of like the documentary style, the realism of it. So I think the characters' actions are realistic. It's not, what we think we would do if we were level-headed at this particular time. I'm sure if anyone's coming at us with a chainsaw wearing some dude's face, we're not going to react.
Everybody thinks they're going to be a badass, and they're going to do.
No,
I would do this. I would do that. And like, no, man.
You wouldn't. Let's face it. There's only one badass that can be level-headed in that moment. That's Lefty. Come on.
It's like everybody thinks that. Yeah, I mean that's the thing. It's like even people who are trained to deal with these things make mistakes and run and are in terror. So, you could be at the gun range every day and still miss every shot you take in a situation like that. So,
your heart's
everybody just thinks, oh, if I'd been there with my sidearm, I would. No, you wouldn't. You'd be dead too.
Yeah.
Get the fuck away from them. That's the only rational thing. That's why they get out of the truck and run away. It's like,
well, yeah, and survival instinct too. Your instincts are going to kick in.
Yeah.
Chances are you're going to run.
Get distance.
Yeah.
I mean, think about Sally running up the stairs, and there's nowhere else to go, and she knows it. And what'd she do? Jumps out the goddamn window, second story window.
What are you gonna do?
Fuck this! I'm out.
Yeah. She jumps out, and then again, like Keith said, jumps out a window again.
Which is fucking realistic. Like, you just want to get away.
The people jumped out of the towers, 9/11.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. They had no other burn alive or jump out the window. You're not going to survive.
Yeah.
But there's no way to stop and think about it.
No.
You got to do it. It's like there was a shooting here in Louisville at one of the protests, and this protester shot another protester, and the guy who was in a tent next to him was like on camera, and he was like really upset. He started blaming himself, and the cop was talking him down. She said, "Don't blame yourself. It's not your fault." And he goes, "It was. I was trying to figure it out." And she goes, "You had a split second to figure it out. That's not enough. Right? It's not enough. It's not your fault. You couldn't have done anything." And that's what it is. Like people, like you said, like Seth said, people think, "Oh, I would have done this, or I would have said that," or no. No one's ever as cool or as badass as they could write it on Facebook. You know? And
I think Sally reacts appropriately to everything that's going on. The screaming is it's warranted 100%. Like, first of all, if she looks down, she's attached to the arms of an armchair by real arms. It's like, what the fuck? I mean, the whole situation. And then you got those three lunatics like making eyes at her, and they're yelling at each other, not making eyes at her, but like making like the Nubbins is making faces, And I love that him and the
Just kind of egging her on.
yeah,
Like,
yeah, I love
what are you
that.
gonna do
I love
about
that.
it?
And then
I love when
she
Leatherface gets in her
looks
face.
at Drayton and says, "You can stop him. You can stop him.
Yeah.
He can't do anything. He's just a cook." I love that so much.
She just saw her brother cut up with a chainsaw.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, how are you going to get over that? You're not going to get over that.
Well,
She
they just fought,
was
so maybe
running.
she's okay with it.
Yeah.
Got
But
the
then
flashlight.
I love the little things like, when she, like you say, when she runs up the stairs and she comes back down the stairs and he comes in the door and she actually scares him. He jumps back.
Yeah.
He looks up and runs up. So there's like this amazing performance there with Gunner, the little things he does, that I wish all of the Leatherfaces had captured.
None of them really did.
The closest, yeah,
Part two.
none of them.
Part 2 was
Part
pretty close,
two-
wasn't it?
Yeah, he does. He gets a little bit of the like someone mentioned how when he's going to let Stretch live because he thinks he can get away with it, they won't know.
Bubba's got a girlfriend.
Yeah,
I love the look on his face too when they're saying that. They keep doing we'll talk about part 2 Thursday.
yeah.
Just look at this. Yeah.
No,
So
don't
part
get
two.
into it.
I
God, I
love
could talk about
part
all
2.
most of
I do
them.
Part 2 is
too.
my favorite.
Part 2 is mine.
But I was listening to the guy dissect the character, and he was saying how he's probably addicted to cannibalism at this point. And they said cannibals have said that like the dopamine that you get from it kind of is like doing a line of coke, and you keep wanting to do it again, and you feel power, and you feel like you want to do it again, and you get kind of attached to. There's a sexual. Some of you even have an orgasm from it, like touching flesh and all that stuff. And like they said, he's probably that way, and that's why he starts making all these things. Like he is a loner. Usually the cannibals are loners, and that's why he has like all these body parts and things around him to have company. And he's making it all that. And that's the other thing. They said there's obviously an artist in that house with like the stuff in the yard and the stuff in the bone yard room.
Think who's at home all the time.
It's
I
Leatherface.
bet it's probably Leatherface.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. He sews his mask together. He gets the skin off the people, so it's probably him.
Or if
He's
he has
he's the mother. He's the housewife. He's the kid. That's the other thing. Like that
the
swing
dog.
set. That swing set's made out of like railroad because he was a big baby. He's a big kid. They had the fucking railroad stuff on there. But yeah, he's all those things. And
just had the weirdest
it's just
thought of Leatherface just shopping in a craft store.
Chris Hall did say something interesting here. It says in the cook.
Do I
originally
need to
told
get more
them
parsley?
to
Do I
stay
need to
away
get more
from.
basil?
what do you say?
Is there any more ingredients you need to add? Why? Anyway, the cook said to stay away from their house, the Franklin house. By the way, Franklin's dad's their last name is Franklin. It was Hardesty. Anyway, I guess it's just called the Franklin house. But he says it's quite odd for that
mother's
character.
house.
Not if he doesn't enjoy the killing. I don't think it's odd for him. because he does tell them to stay away from that house. You don't want to go on somebody else's property.
Well, he doesn't want anybody knowing what they're doing there. That's I think why Leatherface reacts that way is like they're going to get found out if people see what's going on in this house.
Does Nubbins lure everybody to the property? Is that what his job is? Because how else are they eating? You know, like that's my question is because he obviously when they pick him up, he's trying to get them to go take him home, and that's where where I would assume Leatherface would come into play and take him into the house and put him on hooks.
I feel like that's how Nubbins was trying to do it, but that's not how.
You don't send Dracula out to get people to come to the house.
Because he gets in trouble for being out, so I don't think it's.
That's true. So how
family's idea? I think that's like his own thing on his own. The only other way I can think is they just show up at the barbecue joint and kills them. It's not like there's a lot of people around.
There was one other little detail I saw. Everybody calls them the Sawyer family because that's what happened in the sequel. But they said that the reality is it's the Slaughter family. That our last name is Slaughter. It's on the sign at the gas station, and one of the characters' names is Slaughter.
Which ties into the fourth movie because they're the Slaughters.
Yeah, they said the fourth movie is the only one that used it again.
See, I would just see as in the second one they just changed their names.
Yeah, to hide who they are. Yeah.
Drake and Sawyer. Well, who knows? They're not the Hewitts, that's for sure. From the remake. Anyway. And Chris Hall says, "I see how it is, motherfuckers." Okay. Well, sorry. Because I said we'll get to him later. Sorry, Chris. We really appreciate your patronage.
I'm just waiting for him to say you said a wordy dirty.
Dirty birdie.
Dirty birdie.
So what else we got, guys? It got quiet really fast.
Does anybody think that Franklin's character was annoying as fuck? I mean, given his his state, he's handicapped and all that. Like, I've always felt that his character kind of dragged down the tone of the movie a little bit because it was always poor me, poor me, poor me. But then everybody left him, and then you realize, okay,
Franklin, it'll be fun.
You realize like he should have never been there. He shouldn't have never been there.
Yeah, it's one of those things where take your brother with you. I have to take my brother because he doesn't have any friends or anybody. Yeah, I think it's like that's what it is. It's like Paul said he read the script. He actually read for the part of Nubbins originally.
Really?
Well, that would have been weird.
He was actually really fucking good. I think he's really good in the film. He's one of the most believable.
Frankly, yeah, he's excellent.
And he went into method. And he pissed everybody off. Everybody hated him because
that scene with the flashlight. Marilyn was pissed at him.
Yeah,
apparently.
But he was. I think like that part, where he's like, "Oh, come," it's like John McClane, "Come out to the coast, we'll get together, have a few laughs," because he's like stuck there and they're upstairs laughing, and you get it, like he can't go anywhere, he's stuck out there, he's sweating his ass off, he's been cut, they're up there just having fun, so he's like, this sucks.
And he's also the only one who's worried about the Nubbin, the hitchhiker. He might be the most level head out of all of them.
He's the one, and he can't run. He can't get away from it.
No. Did Sally use him as a shield when Leatherface popped up?
No.
Just joking.
That's a great reveal too, because
take him.
He's right in frame, the center frame when they cuts to him, and I love that shot where it's a wide and the light's falling down, and you just see the flashlight illuminating Leatherface cutting. It's a great. There's some shots I was looking at today. I was like, I want to talk about my favorite shots in the film, other than the obvious ones. But there's a great dissolve shot from the sun to where it's like a sunset shot of Jerry walking to the house. I love that transition. And then there's the shot that's a worm's eye view of Kirk and Pam walking to the house, and the sun's above them. I like the shot of just Jerry looking in through the screen door. There's just so many great little shots like that. Again, that cinematography is really, really good.
these shots you're talking about give it that it adds to the realism of the movie too, like that him looking in the door. But one thing I have a problem with is they just walk into people's houses. What the hell's wrong with them?
Well, I mean,
It's
pretty
wasn't
rude.
that a thing back in the day?
It was kind of not.
I don't know.
I've seen it in other movies of that period where, because
Yeah.
that's the thing. Like that, the thing about Ed Gein, like even
Smaller towns had unlocked doors.
yeah, like that was the big shocker of Ed Gein, because before Ed Gein, people trusted their neighbors,
Mm.
and
Exactly.
that was the first time where people were like, I don't know, maybe I can't trust the person next door.
I have a reason not to trust my neighbor. He's got a kill shed in his backyard. I can show it to you guys. I'm not even joking.
That was the alarm. I mean, that Ed Gein Americanized horror, because before Psycho, horror took place in Transylvania
Mhm.
or
Gothic.
cemeteries and mansions. It's all Gothic horror, vampires and werewolves and ghosts and stuff. And this was like, no, this is your fucking neighbor who's chopping people up and eating them. And that was what that and I think Joe Bob said like this was like the first like young person movie where the
Yeah.
victims were
Yeah.
young people, because usually it was older people dealing with horror. And
Like Psycho, everybody was in their 30s and 40s except for
Yeah.
Norman Bates.
so and it was about the hippie culture. It was that's what they
Well-
represented, and that's what the extreme of it. And Charles Manson. This was just 5 years after the Manson family.
Mm-hmm.
Nubbins is, they said, Ed Neal definitely kind of channels a Manson like vibe. You don't want that guy in your van.
Yeah, did you hear what Joe Bob said about how he, to prepare for the role, he took notes from his schizophrenic cousin
Yeah,
or something like that. I mean, he
he just
nailed
did him
it
in person.
because
Yeah,
every little twitch and twinkle in his little eye.
That gun, no
Nubbins.
good.
the sledge.
So
They
that's the
died
thing.
better that way.
It's the weird thing with that movie. Like, I like Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Like, it's a weird thing because every time I watch it, it's like it has a charm to it, if that makes sense. Like, it's one of those movies like I don't really think about all the time. Like, I love the movie, but I don't think about it or like know all the lines. But every time I put it in and watch it, I like immediately know the lines, and like I get a smile on my face when Nuggins is in the van. Like all his lines and all the jokes like just come straight to my head from that beginning scene. Even though they're not jokes, but it's like a fun scene.
Ed said that like Toby's only direction to him was do more of that Strother Martin shit. That was about it. But yeah, that scene is just, you could feel the heat in that van. You could feel the heat in the everything about it. Like it just feels miserable. You could feel their misery.
It's very claustrophobic.
Well, yeah. Not to mention, exactly that, and not to mention Franklin's constant bitching. This heat is gonna kill me.
I can't take much more of this. I love also when he goes down the hill, that was his last day of filming, and they said he had his check in his pocket because he refused to do it unless they paid him that day because they were going to.
Oh, was it when he was taking a piss?
Yeah. So he said his check is in his pocket because he insisted, because he wasn't going down that hill unless they paid him, because he knew that was his last day.
Jesus, I don't blame him. That's a rough shot.
Well, they did. They said like a lot of people didn't get paid, or it was like months before they'd get anything, and yeah, I mean, they didn't get paid a lot. Like I think Terry, who played Pam, got like $700 for the whole shoot. Gunner got like $800 for the whole shoot.
Jesus Christ.
Which is funny because I remember a few years ago, people were bitching about celebrities charging for autographs at shows, and somebody brought up Gunner. He goes, I gave Gunner all my money when I bought the Texas Chainsaw DVD. I'm like, you think he still got that $800 from 1974? I mean, I'm sure he gets residuals and all that, but not residuals, but royalties. I don't think they had any part of the movie. Some people did, but I don't think he did. But it's just funny. People think that these people are rich because they were in a movie 45 years ago.
Especially a movie back then, like rights weren't the same, legal stuff wasn't the same with all this stuff.
Well, none of them were. Only one person was SAG certified, Screen Actors Guild certified, and that was Drayton, Jim Cito. So yeah, I wonder how much he got paid. Probably the most.
Yeah, probably. Well, I think they said they were going to pay him scale, which I don't know what it was then. it's like $500 a day or something like that. And now, I don't know. But yeah, he had to pay just because I guess because maybe they had union workers, or maybe the Texas they had to have union. It had to be a union production. I don't know. I do know, like the guy from he was the head of the Texas Commission at the time. Warren something was the one that came up with, because the title was Head Cheese and it was Leatherface, and then he suggested Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And so the guy that gave the title Texas Chainsaw Massacre actually went on to write Beetlejuice and Batman and Beverly Hills Cop 2 and Top Gun. But he died at like right after Batman. He was like 44 years old. I don't know what it was.
It would have been very weird if the movie
But
was
I found that interesting.
cheese.
But the original was Texas Head Cheese, you said?
No, just Head Cheese.
Just Head Cheese.
That would have been weird.
I'd have been Texas Head Cheese would have been a little bit better.
Well, you'd like it if you didn't know what was in it. I think Franklin might be an underrated character. Seriously, he's the only one with a level head in the entire thing. I mean, he doesn't want to stop at the house. He wants to keep going.
He does
This
his
goes
job.
back-
He annoys the fuck out of me.
Exactly.
He's
That
over
goes
the
back
top.
to
He's over the top, but he is a real person. Like, I know people like that.
Warren Scarron.
that's what Warren scared. That's what pisses me off when people complain about an actor or a character being that way. Like, that's how they're supposed to fucking do. Like you said, they did their job. Like people who complain about the Babadook, that movie sucked. That kid was so annoying. Yeah, he's supposed to be annoying.
Supposed to
Like,
drive
whole
That's
you
the
nuts.
idea.
movie. You know, like, god damn.
Kid's supposed to drive you nuts.
And he did a great job because he was driving everybody on the set nuts.
Yeah.
But still, I like it. Franklin's character quite a bit. He is annoying. He does get under your skin, but like you said, he's doing his job, and he's doing a great job in my opinion. But like, he has great scenes. That whole interaction with him and Nubbins in the van, the scene where he's freaking out on the lower level of the house, rolling down the hill with his check in his pocket. Which I'm glad I know that. I didn't know that. You do see something in his pocket. You have no idea what it is. Now we know it's his fucking paycheck. So he could have bought the gas. And then the scene with him and Sally and the flashlight. He would not give her the flashlight for anything.
You think I said something to make him mad?
But that the whole idea that they say it's based on a true story, which was really unique at the time. Like, I believed it because I didn't know shit about this stuff, and I was a 12-year-old kid watching it, and then just that opening monologue with John Larroquette from Night Court, who was like a nobody at the time. That they wanted him to sound like Orson Welles, and he lied, said he could sound like Orson Welles, and apparently John said that he's never seen the movie and he did it for a joint. That was his payment.
A joint?
Yeah, got one joint. And that brings up another thing. They said that the guy that owned the house came up to Danny Pearl once and said, well, shit, guys, you're moving in here. I thought you were going to be here for 3 days. He goes, what? No, we're going to be here like 3 weeks. He goes, well, shit, I better tell y'all something. He's like, well, he goes, I have about 2 acres of marijuana that I've grown out there, and the thing is, y'all can have whatever you want. You pick it, dry, whatever. He said, but just don't take it off the property. But then there's another story where the guy, I can't remember who it was, said that they walked out and they saw all of it. And they went, holy shit. And they freaked out because apparently they had met the sheriff before filming. And it was a guy that was part of taking Charles Whitman out, back at the Texas Tower. And this guy was like an old school badass cop, sheriff. And he said, we talked to them just so we knew, hey, we're going to be out there. We're going to be shooting. So if you hear anything, any calls, it's us out there doing it. But he told the guy, yeah, come by, stop by any time. So they got up there and they saw that, goes, the fucking sheriff's going to show up any minute. We got to get this shit out of here. And the guy that was producer of the film, Paisley, he said, oh shit, he's like a bureaucrat, or he was like some kind of government guy. He's like, I gotta get the fuck out of here. He got in his car and left. When he saw which apparently the killer mask is based on his face. It's like casting his face. producer.
The one you have behind you?
Yeah, that one is the producer that got scared of the weed at the had to leave. Which yeah, we talk about those masks, man. There's that mask is so amazing. It really is. I don't know. It's just something about it.
It's the best of the three in the movie, because the old lady mask you almost don't recognize.
You don't even see her at all.
Yeah,
Really.
he only wears it for a couple minutes, and then of course the pretty lady one. I'm not a fan of it. My brother used to have a friend that I'm like, she looks like Leatherface at the end of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre because her makeup was done up the same, and she wasn't a pretty girl. But yeah, the masks were fantastic. They do. It's not just the mask; it goes beyond the masks as far as like the lampshades, and it looks really, really good and very realistic, like dried up old skin.
They said
Better
they
than
made
the
it
other
out of
movies.
latex and insulation, I think.
It had to be hot as fuck because apparently that was one of the hottest movies ever. John Dugan, we had on the show a couple years ago, talked about how hot it was. He played Grandpa, of course. Talked about how hot it was on the set, and there was no AC or anything like that, and everybody was just always hot. And somebody I
100.
can't remember was in a bad mood all the time because it was so damn hot. I can't remember who it was though.
I think it was all of them because they said it was like when the day he was on there. I mean, we got to talk about it. He only did that one day because it took like 8 hours to get that makeup,
Mm-hmm.
and that was the notorious 27-hour day.
Yeah.
They started like noon on one day and ended 3 in the afternoon on the next day, and it's because John would not. She said, "I'm not doing this again," so they had to shoot it all. So that whole dinner scene was like 27-hour marathon shooting.
Yeah.
They said, but the time where they're trying to get Grandpa to hit her with the sledgehammer, he goes, Gunner said, I just fucking at that point, I forgot who I was. And I was like, when they said, kill that bitch, I was like, okay, I'm going to go kill her because I didn't know what was going on. Because that was like hour 18 and we were nuts. And it was like 115 degrees in there. It smelled like death because all of the head cheese and the chicken on the table and all that was rotting.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes, we'd have to go out, like every time we cut, we'd go outside to puke. And it was just like this, like the Dottie Pearl, Danny Pearl's wife, who was doing makeup, said, we're in purgatory. This is purgatory. And thinking about her, I came up. Danny Pearl said that she did makeup on 1941, Spielberg's movie, and he went to visit her, and someone told Steven who he was. He goes, Daniel Pearl, you shot Texas Chainsaw? He said, yeah. He goes, he walked away from like 100 crew people, took them to John Belushi's trailer to ask him about that dolly shot. He goes, how did you do that? He told him. And then Ed Neal said he did the same thing. The same thing happened to him on JFK. Oliver Stone hired him because he was in Texas Chainsaw. Because the whole time Oliver's asking me how we did that shot and picking my brain. And I told him how we did, and he goes, "There's no fucking way." He goes, "Yeah, the grips just lifted the thing, and we did." Like, no, that can't be possible. You're lying.
It can't be that simple.
Yeah, that shot became very famous after the movie, and it's a wonderful shot, like you said earlier in the show.
I watched the interview with Danny. He talked about that shot and the shot. I think we mentioned the chainsaw dance at the end, but he also said that shot where he's chasing her, and it's a shot where like it's almost like she's frozen in frame. She's running away from him, but she's not changing the size, and the camera's not moving. It's a still shot because he's got a telescopic lens. He got a real long lens on it. So that's what creates that image. A lot of cinematographers all like really love that shot and talk about that shot. That's like become an iconic thing that he's asked about. And Gunnar talks about that scene and how she was so slow that he kept having to like stop and chop up the brush and all that because he would catch up with her.
Yeah, I notice that every time I watch it. I always just look at it as he's playing with his food.
Yeah.
He's just cat and mousing her for the hell of it.
Ed said he used to go to the Austin Village Theater when the movie was screening in '74, and he like after the movie was done, he tapped somebody on the shoulder and scare the shit out of them. And they see who he was. Because after a while, they wouldn't let me back in.
sounds bad, but the whole like 72-hour filming thing, like it sounds fun to me.
Oh no. I think the longest I've ever filmed on a set was like maybe 17 hours, and that was where I changed the whole scene just because I could see how tired everybody was. Because that's the thing, you're worried about your people and how they're reacting, and my star was sick, so I could see that she had nothing left, and it was her big death scene, and it was really elaborate, very physical, and it was like 3 a.m, and we've been shooting since I don't know 8 a.m. or something. I can't remember what time we started that day, but we only had a weekend to shoot the whole movie. It was a little short, and so I said, "All right, here's what we're gonna do," because I could see everybody was just drained. But yeah, and the thing is, I wasn't in 110-degree weather
Yeah.
or in with no air condition. I mean, it was hot. We were somewhere hot, but it was actually in October, so it wasn't like July in Texas. I've been to Texas twice, and it's fucking not. It's just right. But no, it's not. It's not fun. It's just, especially if you're the crew, you're just sitting around waiting for people. And if Toby, as they say, was kind of making shit up as he went, didn't really have total plans, that's really aggravating.
Yeah.
And pisses people off.
So that
really
that probably also added to why that was such a long shooting, is you probably didn't know.
Well, they said they lost who they were because they were so angry. They were actually going nuts and pissed off, and they were really ready to, like, Gunners talked about cutting her finger for Grandpa to drink the blood, and the gag wasn't working, so he just ripped the tube off and actually cut her. And it said, like, Marilyn was up for that shit. There was a lot of times where she said, "Just fucking hit me, just do it, get it over with." So she deserves all the accolades she gets, because she
deserved to have a better career too. She's
Yeah.
great in that movie. She did get to play in Texas Chainsaw 3D in 2013. She played the grandmother of which is the sequel to this movie, actually.
She played Linda Kasabian in Helter Skelter.
Yeah, that's Helter Skelter.
Yeah,
That was one I always looked for. I could never find to watch. I heard about it. I was reading about the Manson family in high school. Anyway, so let's wrap up tonight. There's a lot we could talk about. We've got 2 and 3 coming up on
I've got a
Thursday,
few little
which I'm
things
excited about. Both are very good, especially 2, of course, but 3 is really underrated in my opinion, and it deserves to be viewed. And Scream Factory, where are you at? Come on, we got some bullshit release on Blu-ray. Let's get the real deal here. Let's get this done.
That Warner Brothers release.
Yeah, I've got it.
That's the one I have. I've never seen it, so it was the only copy I could find on Blu-ray.
Watch it. It's wonderful. It's
I'm
a really
going
good
to.
movie. 2 is directed by Toby Hooper. A lot of fun. A little bit different. Bill Moseley steals the show as Chop Top.
Oh, yeah.
my
Nubbin's
favorite.
brother. People think he's the same character, but do you think Nubbin survived that fucking horrific wreck? I don't think so. So who wants to start off on final thoughts tonight? How about Jared? I like to ask who wants to, and then give. And go and say. Jared, you go.
It's one of my favorite horror movies of all time. Like, I mean, it's very gritty. It's very dirty. It doesn't follow a lot of any of the tropes that we're aware of anymore these days.
Well, tropes weren't there yet, really.
No, not at all. Like, this felt like a snuff film that wasn't a snuff film. Like, that's the effect that this movie has on the horror genre, in my opinion. And I will still watch it forever and ever 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 and ever.
I think, like we said about the cliches, like I was watching the John Carpenter documentary, and they talked about, because we touched on this I think last week or a few weeks, where people say that they all of a sudden this movie's not good anymore, or people shit on it or say it's not a classic or whatever, and it comes back to that. They said that it's about Halloween. It's like a lot of people are saying that. They watch Texas Chainsaw, they watch Halloween, they say it's predictable, it's cliche, it's passe, whatever. It's like, but this, guy said it's because those movies invented those cliches.
Yep.
That they weren't they it's not that they were that's where they came from, and everyone's been copying them and recycling them over the last 40 years. That's why. So, and unfortunately, that's what happens. Is people have watched all these Texas Chainsaw ripoffs and Halloween ripoffs, and then those movies lose their power because of that. Just like I brought up Citizen Kane. Citizen Kane for a long time was called the greatest film of all time, and people are like, oh, it's boring. I don't get it. It sucks. It's like, it's because Orson Welles invented so many techniques that people still use today. He changed the way films were made because what he did in that film.
Yeah, and Joe Bob brought up a really cool thing about the generational, how different generations view the movie, which I thought was very fascinating. About how, later generations found it laughable and it terrified others, and now it's terrifying people again. But at the same time, our fan base, out of the people who interact with us on Facebook, they love this movie, except for Justin Bevan, of course. He hates this movie. But anyway, yeah, they seem to love this movie. When we do the brackets, it gets highly or it makes it far, and on the rankings it did really well. Keith, you go. Final thoughts.
Final thoughts. I don't know what else there is to say really.
All right, let's move on to another person.
I mean, I love this movie. I mean, I don't know how much freaking TCM crap. My wallet's TCM. I mean, it's a fun movie. I like showing it to people who've never seen it. Like, that's my favorite thing to do. I think I've shown it to like 5 of my friends now, and it's just fun watching them see it for the first time and getting to see them experience it for the first time. Because I mean, it's different than any other horror movie that I watch, if that makes sense. Like, it just has a different feel, a different environment, everything.
You got to get in the right headspace, I think, to watch the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah.
All right. How about Nate? You
All right. I had one little thing to add before I do the final thought. I didn't know about this, so I did research this week. Kim Hinkle said, of course, everybody knows he was based on Geen, but at the time there was a case like a couple of years before that, or a year before that, in Houston, and there's a guy named Elmer Wayne Henley, a 17-year-old kid, and he was invited to, a friend of his invited him to this guy's house, 30-year-old guy named Dean Coral, and the guy eventually was called the Candyman or the Pied Piper.
Oh yeah.
Basically, what this guy did was he paid these young guys to lure other young men to his home, where they would offer them weed, coax them into handcuffing themselves, and then the guy would beat them, rape them, and murder them, and they would bury the bodies. And he paid them $200 every time they would bring another guy to his house. So these two guys, like Nubbins and all that, would bring victims to this guy's house, and he would do that. It's like 28 young boys and young teenage men were murdered by this guy and raped by this guy, buried under the house. And eventually he brought a girl over, and the guy got mad, and it started a conflict, and the young guy ended up shooting him and killing him. And then he's still in prison today, the kid. But I think maybe Kim got maybe Nubbins from that kind of thing. But my final thoughts on Chainsaw, I've always felt that Chainsaw is the first true modern horror film, where the old was gone. I mean, Last House came
with the
before.
Exorcist could be considered the last of the old guard, if you will.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just think it's the arrival of when horror shifted another way, and it set up Halloween, it set up Friday the 13th, it set up all those type of films to happen. And I think it's the film that horror filmmakers have been chasing since 1973. I think everybody's been trying in some ways to capture. And again, I don't think it was something that can be done, because it's just people tried to copy it and emulate it, and there's just something you can't recapture. It was a magical piece of cinema that ended up on film in a way that just couldn't be. And I just think it's as Keith said, there's nothing else like it. Even though the movies that copy it, the Wrong Turn movies and the Rob Zombie,
The Hills Have
Firefly
Eyes.
movies, and The Hills Have Eyes, they don't feel like this movie. And the thing is, it's so simple. It is. It's a simple narrative. It's a short film, and it breaks so many rules. You know, like I said, people always complain about, oh, I don't like the characters. There's no character development, and they say that all the time. But this movie has none of that either. But no one shits on it for it. You know, like you don't care, like
True.
because it just creates this whole atmosphere and this feeling and this vibe the whole time where you're just, as Wes Craven said, you're just kind of being beaten and attacked the whole time, and you feel. I think Clive Barker said that of that movie is like sometimes it's a good thing to be put into the hands of a psychopath as long as it's in a movie and art, not in real life. So that's kind of how that movie felt. It was like you feel like you're in the hands of a maniac, you know. And maybe Toby had a little bit of that, you know. Like, you know, we didn't even talk about how his inspiration was what he was in Sears or something for Christmas, and he was like in a long line. He saw a chainsaw rack, and he just thought, "Hey, that's a way to get out of here." So, I just love the film. It's in my top 5 horror. It's my 4th favorite horror film, and I do. I think it's arguably the greatest horror film there is. I really do. I think in title alone, it tells you what it is, and it already makes your mind start turning. It's a fucking amazing title. I'm so glad that guy pitched that title. It wasn't just called Leatherface or Head Cheese.
I'm glad it's not called Head Cheese.
Yeah.
Sounds like a trauma movie.
It
But
does.
the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, it was like the ultimate midnight cult movie. I think it's like the second one after Night of the Living Dead. I could go on and on about it. I mean, we got a whole week, but like Keith said, I put it on. Every time I put it on, I'm just like, God, this is a work of brilliance. And the more dissecting it this time to really pay attention to how good. We didn't even fucking mention the music. Wayne Bell's, like, it's more sound design than anything. It's just like kids' instruments being hit, and all these weird sounds. There's really no score, which makes it even more realistic. And then we didn't talk about fucking Bob Burns and his production design and his art and all the props and all the stuff he did, which is part of it. Because just like Danny Pearl said, if I don't have a good director and you don't have stuff to shoot, it doesn't matter how good of a cinematographer you are. Bob Burns created a whole world in that house. That death house there's so much to see that you can watch that movie and miss so much. I like going back and watching and just looking around the house and the rooms, because you don't take it all in. You don't see everything, but there's so much brilliance in there. And a lot of these guys were just amateurs. That's another thing. This movie was very amateur. Like, a lot of these people were not experienced. Danny Pearl, this was the first feature film he'd ever shot. And you would never know that, especially coming up with that fucking shot that he came up with. Like, that's considered the greatest dolly shot in film history. And
I feel like he just looked at it and was like, oh yeah, that's pretty simple. We can just do this. And then everybody else is like, what?
But
they're lying about it.
Again, I could go on, but it's to me, it's required viewing for all horror fans. It should be in anybody's top 10, in my opinion. If there's a top 10 horror movie list that's official, this movie belongs up there without question.
It's a good thing you say that, because we have an official top 10 or top 100 horror movie list, and it is in the top 10. So I think it's in the top 5, because that's where it belongs, even if the screaming is annoying. Seth, how about you? Some final thoughts.
My final thoughts are it's a dumpster fire. I don't even like movies. I don't know why I'm here. No, I enjoy it. It's a good movie. I do kind of prefer the second one over the first, but the first one is just fantastic for all the reasons that you guys mentioned. Yeah, it's good. I enjoy it. I can't watch these movies a lot. They are kind of ugly. But I do at least once a year go through them, and then the first one's iconic. We can't deny how iconic that movie is. Back to you.
Yeah, there are so many things about it that make it iconic, and uh, I I I love the movie. I don't I could talk about it a lot as well, but it's a great movie, and I think it is. I'm not a filmmaker, but I believe that this would be a good one for anybody who wants to make film to watch and listen to the commentaries. I didn't really talk much about the commentaries. I did watch them. Um, it's a terrific movie, and every horror fan should watch it at least once. And if it's not somewhere on your list, it should be. It's a fucking ride. It really is. Now don't forget Thursday we're about to talk about 2 and 3. Got super excited because I get to talk about Chop Top. Yeah, we're gonna talk about 2 and 3 on Thursday. Next week we'll wrap up the series on Tuesday with 4, which is the next generation or the new something garbage. It's a weird movie because you get drawn into it and it's not very good. The remake and the remake prequel and then the sequel prequel that came out in 2013 and 2017 that are really not good. We'll talk about all that, and just make sure you come back and hang out with us. And Chris, we love you. Have a good night.